So today we're going to be talking about different ways that new technologies are really going to affect the way industry in our country is going to work. So you're going to be annotating this map as we go along. So I'll be talking and giving you information, and you need to make sure you're listening and then also copying down what you see in the image onto your map. So it is important that you listen because I'm going to give you some information, some context to help you follow along. But first thing you want to do is go ahead and write the title on this map: Natural Resources, Transportation, and Industry. So when we think about these natural resources, we think about things like wood that you need for building or metals that come from the ground. And so a lot of these things are being found out in the west of our country. But a lot of our natural resources, in order to make them into something, you need a factory. You need a lot of people who have a lot of skills to build it. And the factories, the industry, was really in the east. And so before we have the railroad, it's taking forever to get the stuff and transport it. It's really expensive. You have dirt roads, and every time it rains, they turn to mud and you have to stop. It's horrible. But with our new railroads, then we start being able to move our goods to the factories. So on your map, somewhere in the west, you're going to go ahead and write natural resources. And it's better if you do this at the bottom of your map like you see me doing. And then draw a big old arrow over to the east. And over there, you need to write eastern factories, just like you see in this image. So as we start building these factories in the east, certain areas begin to specialize in making specific goods. And so we call these manufacturing regions or centers. And one of the first big manufacturing industries in the United States is the textile industry. That's spelled Textile. And that was really centered in New England. Textiles are any type of cloth. So yes, the blue jeans that you're wearing, but also sails on a boat or linens on a bed. And so the first factories in our country start making these textiles in New England. So go ahead and in New England, like you see on this map, so that's like the northeast of the Northeast, write textiles in New England. I know mine went off the map a little, but you need to include it on yours. Our next manufacturing center is the city of Detroit. So Detroit is well known for its car industry, and even if you think of the NBA team, the Detroit Pistons, that is a part that goes in a car. They're so proud of their automobile industry that they named their NBA team after it. So Detroit is in Michigan. That's that state that looks like a mitten, and Detroit is kind of fallen off the pinky finger. So make sure you put a dot like you see on that map and write cars in Detroit. Our next industry is very important as our country is changing. So steel is a really important material. It's a metal. It's actually not found in the ground. You have to make it from other stuff, especially iron. But when you make it into steel, it becomes very strong and also very light. And we had known how to make steel for thousands of years, but with this 1800s, we have new ways of making steel that are going to be much cheaper and much quicker. And so all of a sudden, we can make lots of steel for cheap, and we're using steel to do things like make the frames for buildings. And this is why we start seeing the first skyscrapers at this time, because you can actually use steel as a material to build with. So go ahead and add steel in Pittsburgh. A good way to remember that, by the way, their NFL team, Pittsburgh Steelers, it's named after their steel industry. So we have one more industry to add, and that is the meat packing industry. So we know that meat goes bad really quickly, and so during this time, we're finding new ways to preserve meat, like canning it, and that's going to mean that people have better access to meat. They don't have to worry about buying something right away and eating it, or having an animal and caring for it until it's time to eat it. And so this industry is centered in the city of Chicago. That's in Illinois. You can sort of see it's at the edge of Lake Michigan. So make sure to put a dot right there for Chicago and add it to your map as meat packing in Chicago. We also have to think about what we're going to do with these finished products. So We have all of these factories in the East. So there are these places that specialize in goods, but there's factories all over the East. We have to get these finished products to the people who want them. And so the railroad is going to be really important to this. And we're going to see the first mail order catalogs, which were like the Amazons of the day because you could buy anything in them. And then they would ship it to you on the railroad. So right now, I want you to write finished products to the rest of the country. So you see finished products to the rest of the country, and then draw arrows from that to the rest of the country.